question is what is God doing? When we think about the world today, it's a crazy place. Your spiritual life, your own life, your family life. Well, happy weekend. We hope you are having a wonderful Legacy Family Weekend and that you are having an absolute blast as you honor God, build healthy relationships, and as you have a blast doing it all. We're continuing our study on the book of Nehemiah. As we continue to get ready to move forward in the things that God is doing, one of the things that's for sure, everything changes daily in our world right now. That while you woke up yesterday with one set of rules for our nation, you wake up today with another set of rules for our nation. And so the question is as a leader, not a manager, you're a leader, how do you respond to leadership in those opportunities? How do you prepare yourself? How do you deal with the emotions? How do you deal with the passion? And all that, remember that Nehemiah was a cupbearer to the king. And so he had royalty. He had it going on. He was in a position of authority. He had a position of trust. And yet at the same time, he had a position of a burden on his heart of what God was calling him to do. Many times in our life, even when we're highly successful, just like Nehemiah, God will give us a burden that doesn't match the position in which we're in. Then He'll have us change the position to change and chase His passion for our purpose and fulfilling our destiny in Him. So today, what I want to do is we live in these crazy times. I want to remember who Nehemiah was, that he was a great leader, and that in that he lived in times just like we live in today. That you can change from CNN and get one story, to Fox News to get another story, to MSNBC to get another story, and that nobody really knows what's going on. And if you're arrogant enough today to say, well, I know the truth, you're probably eating out of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because the truth comes from the tree of life, which means that there's always going to be mysteries in this life that we live. And so what was good for yesterday isn't good for today. And so it's not that people are lying to us intentionally. It's that things evolve and things change daily. So as a leader, how do we plan for success? And how do we live that life of leadership knowing that things will change? Let me share with you today 4 or 5 simple truths that I think can help us all. I know that they help me. Number one, in Nehemiah 2:1, when Nehemiah went to the king, the month he went to the king was 4 months later from when he got the burden from God, and he asked his friends the questions, how is the place? How are the digs? How is it where we used to hang out? Many of the young people love watching Outer Banks, and they talk about this group and that group. How are the Outer Banks doing today is basically what they were saying. How are the Pogues? How is this? How is it hanging? And what's going on with the Outer Banks? And once Nehemiah found out that reality, he took 4 months. He took 4 months to think it through. To say, God, what are you doing in me? What are you doing through me? And how do I anticipate? And how do I lead things through? So number one, when God's dealing with a leader, not management. Management is day-to-day operation from the strategies that leaders give you. When you have an organization, when you have something that you're running, a company, your leaders will lead and your managers will manage. Your leaders will bring strategy, your managers will implement the strategies. When you have your managers try to move into leadership, you create a chaos and an inconsistency that will cause you not to finish across the finish line. When you have leaders focus on management all the time and not on leadership, it does the same thing. So we have to think it through. A great leader once said this, that nothing is more profitable, think about this, nothing is more profitable than serious thinking, and nothing is more demanding. The emotional passion takes time and it drains you of energy. Unless you've been in that place of leadership, and especially leading large organizations, you way underestimate the emotional energy it takes to lead. People will leave a meeting or a lunch meeting and go, man, I am so tired. And they don't understand it because leadership takes emotion. Let's keep going. Number 2. When he goes on, he says, we need to be prepared for opportunities. That once he listened to what was going on in their Outer Banks, that everything the wall had come down, it was all in ruins, he noticed it as an opportunity, not as a challenge. We need to plan for opportunities. No more in the history of my life have we had more opportunities to lead than we do today. Now you say, man, Clark, everything's in chaos. Chaos is the perfect time to be consistent and to bring opportunities. This past week I've been in some meetings, and as I've been in the meetings, I've been asking some questions about the foundation of the organizations that I'm dealing with. Because the reality is the strength of your foundation will determine the race you run and the pace you finish across the finish line. Then I'm dealing with some organizations that, man, the cosmetics, the exterior walls, the makeup, man, it looks great. But when you deal with the foundations, it doesn't exist. And it's not sexy, it's not fun, it's not what's great to work on, but without the healthy foundation, you can never chase the great opportunity. Nehemiah laid the foundation to run about the opportunity. Number 3, let's keep going. We've got to establish a goal. Listen to what Nehemiah says here. And then he said to the king, if it pleases the king, there's a whole message right there. It's a message of honor, building healthy relationships. If it pleases the king, and if this might be good for your servant, that's me, who is before you, then would you send me to Judah, the city of my father's tomb, so that I may, catch this, rebuild the wall. Nehemiah 2:5. We have to have a target. We have to have a goal. We have to know where we're going and what we're doing. In this, there's 3 simple questions of what do I want to be, what do I want to do, and what do I want to have. Now in that, there's the fleshly answers. I want a BMW convertible. I want a pool. I want a nice house. And so those are all fleshly answers, but God's talking about the burden that He lays on your heart for leadership. What do I want to be? What do I want to have? And what do I want to do? And what are the goals? And the goals without a deadline are simply just fancy thoughts. Just thoughts in your little world of fantasizing. That you have to put a deadline. Now deadlines change because the government might change the rules on masks. It might change the rules on injections. It might change the rules. They change every day right now. But in that, we have to have a deadline that we offer to others. And in that, we live into our deadlines. Number 4, as we continue to look at this, is set a deadline. In Nehemiah 2:6, how long will you be gone? Nehemiah established a deadline. He said, here's what I think will take. Our deadlines change, determined by what's going on in our world. But consistency of communication to those that we're honoring is the key to our deadlines. In that, we can't just go months without any communication. We can't go dark and go, man, it's only been a minute. We've got to make sure we're communicating as other things affect our deadlines. I just left a meeting and we were talking about this and legacy family and what God's doing and possibilities of other things and all these different things. And the reality is we can lay out great plans, but depending upon what our president decides will ultimately affect our deadlines. Because we live under the honor of honoring those in authority over us. But yet we can't use that as a reason or an excuse not to have the deadline. Because it's what I call a pace map. That if you're a manager, if you're a COO, if you don't have a pace map that says, here's what I'm going to do this week, here's what I'm going to do this month, here's what the month of July looks like, it's a month of rest. I'm going to take that month of rest and I'm going to cause everybody to rest. Or I'm going to take that month and I'm going to turn it into a momentum month. What does your pace map say? Because your pace map will determine your deadlines. I used to always say what you have written down Monday by noon or on your computer is what you'll have done by Friday at 5. Because what you establish as a goal and as a deadline is what will determine your week. And if you don't, you will live a reactionary life of who says what, how they say it, and what comes across. One of the things I'm trying to do is I love leading, but I'm continuing trying to learn to lead more and more by listening. By asking a question of somebody I'm sitting with at lunch and just listening. And just seeing what their response is so that I will know what my leadership needs to be. So when the narrative is created that, man, I can't believe what Clark said, the response can easily be, well, I actually just sat there and listened. Because people will spin all day long. People will sell all day long. That's why we have TikTok superstars. I read an article yesterday about all the TikTok superstars. I say this with sadness. They have created and committed suicide because they were famous for a moment, but they had no foundation to their goals. See, what happens is when we don't manage and lead, we create a facade that we can't live into. And then when God gives us favor with sometimes famous people that want to buy into what we do, eventually, if they don't see that foundation, they're going to expose the facade. And what celebrities do is they will expose the facade and they will use their platform to take you down. So the foundation, it's not sexy, it's not fun, but it will determine the rise and the level of our leadership in our life. Number 5, and the last thing that we're going to look at in Nehemiah, is he anticipated the problems. He was covering thousands of miles, going through hundreds of provinces. And in that, he knew that every province had different restrictions. Right now, every city, every state, every region, every nation, every world, every country in our world has different guidelines for how we respond to a pandemic. We have to know if we're opening something in Colorado, what are the CDC guidelines for that state, because they're not the same as Oklahoma, where I sit today. And so I have to anticipate the problems and the opportunities that we walk through when we deal with those states. That California right now is shutting everything back down. At the same time, Texas is opening everything back up. So how do we deal with those realities? Nehemiah was a leader and you're a leader. And as a legacy family, we want you to live into your leadership ability. And as we continue to build the leadership family of Legacy Family, we want you to live as a leader, to honor God, to build healthy relationships, and have a blast as you believe in a God that can do anything. We want to say thank you for the way you share the messages. Thank you for the way you share the love. Thank you for the way you tithe. Thank you for the way you bring. We look forward to our future. We'll see you in tomorrow's devotion. Have a great day. We love you. We're proud of you. We appreciate you. God bless you. And you are a Legacy Family.